The sound of thunder woke me up. I opened my eyes and saw the familiar green mosquito net hanging over my bed. Outside, rain was coming down in sheets, hammering against the roof. My heart was beating fast. This wasn't the sterile, cold hospital room where I had died. It was my bedroom. I, Chloe, had woken up here last night, burning up with a fever and talking nonsense. Just then, Mark Peterson came in. He was in his full military uniform, his handsome face creased with worry. At 25, he was in his prime, a confident and ambitious young officer. I sat up straight in bed as a wave of memories washed over me. It was July 15th, 1975. This was the third year of my marriage to Mark, and it was the day my nightmare had started in my past life. On this very day, Mark's first love, Jessica Miller, came back to the Army base. She was one of the educated youth returning from the countryside. Jessica, who was as beautiful as a painting, only had to say one thing, "Mark, I'm back," to win back the man who was my husband. And I, Chloe, who everyone called the perfect military wife, had been foolish enough to help them get back together. I had washed Jessica's dirty clothes. I had encouraged her to come to our house. Even after I found out they were having an affair, I blamed myself, thinking I hadn't done enough. It wasn't until 3 years later, on another stormy night, that I found them together in the duty room at the military hospital. That was the moment my heart finally broke. I ran out into the rain, slipped on a muddy path, and fell off a cliff. As I was dying, I heard Mark screaming my name, "Chloe! Chloe!" His voice full of a regret that was fake and useless. "What's wrong?" "You don't look well," Mark said now, reaching out to feel my forehead. I pulled away from his touch. In my past life, a small gesture like that would have made me cry with gratitude. I would have held his hand and told him how good he was to me. But now, I just felt sick. "I'm fine," I said, my voice flat and empty. Mark paused, surprised. The wife he knew always spoke in a soft, sweet voice. This cold, distant tone was new to him. "Chloe," a voice called from outside. It was Private Davis, the guard. "There's an urgent call from command." Mark frowned and looked back at me. "I'll go get it. You should rest. Tell me what you want for dinner, and I'll have the mess hall make it for you." I didn't answer. I just watched him leave. Once he was gone, I took a deep breath. I had a second chance, and I wasn't going to be the foolish woman who gave everything up for a man. This time, I would live for myself. The thunder outside sounded like a drum beat, matching the determination in my heart. I got out of bed and went to the vanity. The mirror showed a pale but pretty face. At 22, I had fair skin and soft features, the kind of classic beauty people admired back then. It was a shame I had wasted it on a man who didn't deserve it. I opened a drawer and took out a photo album. I flipped to the picture in the middle. It was of an 18-year-old Jessica Miller, smiling brightly in a plaid shirt under a tree. On the back it said, "To my dearest Mark, with love, Jessica. Spring 1970. Mark had never been able to throw it away. In my past life, when I found it, I had told him I understood that first loves were sweet memories. I was such a fool. Now I tore the picture into little pieces and threw them in the trash. I felt a sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Mark was coming back. "Chloe," he said, walking into the room. "Command just told us a group of educated youth is returning tomorrow. Our unit is in charge of welcoming them." He sat on the bed, a hint of excitement in his voice. "Can you guess who might be coming back?" Of course I knew. In my past life, I had naively asked if it was his old classmate, Jessica Miller. I remembered the look in his eyes then. It wasn't just friendship, it was love. "I don't know," I said coolly. "Who do you think it is?" Mark was clearly surprised. He was trying to act casual, but I could see the hope in his eyes. "Maybe Jessica Miller," he finally said. "She's been in the countryside for 3 years. It's about time she came back." "Oh," I said, and that was all. Mark waited, but when I didn't say anything else, he looked confused. "Aren't you curious? Jessica is my classmate. She's really nice. I think you two would get along." In my past life, that would have made me so excited. I would have asked a million questions and offered to make a big welcome dinner for her. This time, I just said, I'm not curious. Your classmate has nothing to do with me. Mark froze. He knew something was wrong with me today, but he couldn't figure out what. Chloe, what's wrong? Did I do something? I looked at his confused face and felt a bitter sense of irony. In my past life, I had desperately wanted him to ask me that, to care about my feelings. But back then, he only had eyes for Jessica. He hardly remembered he had a wife. Now he was asking, but I didn't care anymore. No, I said calmly. I just think your business is your own. You don't need to talk to me about everything. Mark frowned. What I said sounded reasonable, but it felt wrong. I used to love being involved in his life, asking about his meetings and his day. I told him it made me feel like a part of his world. Now I was telling him to keep his work to himself. Mark, I'm tired. I want to sleep a little more, I said, lying down and turning my back to him. Mark sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my back with a growing sense of unease. He didn't know what it was, but he felt that something important had changed between us. The next morning, the whole military base was talking about Jessica Miller's return. I was hanging laundry outside when I heard Mrs. Wilson from next door talking to someone. Oh my, that Jessica looks even prettier now. 3 years in the countryside didn't hurt her looks at all. Her skin is still so fair. I know, right? I saw her talking to Captain Peterson. They look like they were made for each other. If her family hadn't had those problems back then, she'd probably be the captain's wife now. Shh, don't let Chloe hear you. But you know, Chloe is a good girl. She's a model military wife. She's just a little too soft. I listened to them gossip and felt nothing. In my past life, words like that would have cut me like a knife. I would have wanted to hide from the world, feeling like everyone was mocking me for stealing someone else's place. Now I knew they were just enjoying the drama. Chloe, Mark's voice called from the front gate. I turned and saw him standing there with a woman. It had been 3 years since I'd last seen Jessica Miller, and she had gotten more beautiful. She looked graceful and mature. She was wearing a simple, faded blue jacket and had her hair in 2 braids. But it couldn't hide her natural elegance. The worst part was the way she looked at Mark with a softness that was almost sickeningly sweet. Chloe, let me introduce you, Mark said with a warm smile. This is my classmate I told you about, Jessica Miller. Jessica, this is my wife, Chloe Peterson. Jessica smiled gently. Hi, Chloe, I'm Jessica. Mark always talks about you. He says you're the best military wife in the whole compound. In my past life, those words would have made me cry. I would have taken her hand and told her we were family now. This time, I just nodded and said, hello. Just one word, distant and polite. Jessica froze for a second. She had expected a warm welcome, not this coldness. Mark quickly tried to smooth things over. Chloe's just getting over a fever. She's still a bit weak. Don't take it personally, Jessica. Of course not, Jessica said graciously, though a flicker of confusion crossed her face. Jessica's staying at the guest house and the conditions there aren't great, Mark went on. I was thinking maybe she could stay with us for a few days until her work assignment is settled. What do you think? In my past life, I had agreed right away. I even offered her our bedroom while Mark and I took the guest room. Looking back, I had basically handed her the weapon she used to destroy me. That's not appropriate, I said flatly. Men and women need to have boundaries. People might talk. Mark's face changed. Chloe, Jessica's my classmate. Does that mean classmates can live together? I cut him off, my voice calm but firm. Captain Peterson, you're a soldier. You should be more careful about how things look. I called him by his formal title, not the usual Mark. Jessica quickly jumped in. Chloe's right, I wasn't thinking. The guest house might be a bit rough, but I can manage. I don't want to cause any trouble for Mark. Her voice was soft and pitiful, as if I were being a cruel, unreasonable wife. Mark looked at her, then back at me, his displeasure growing. The Chloe he knew was the kindest person. She'd bring home stray cats. Now she was being cold to an old classmate. I have things to do. I'll leave you two to talk, I said, picking up the laundry basket and heading inside. At the door, I stopped and turned to Jessica. Miss Miller, even if you are Mark's classmate, I need to remind you that he's a married man. Please be mindful of your behavior." Without waiting for a reply, I went inside, leaving them speechless. Jessica's face turned red and tears welled up in her eyes. "Mark, I wasn't," she stammered. I know," he murmured, but his frustration with me was at its peak. He couldn't understand how his wife had changed so much. Inside, I watched them from the window. Mark was gently patting Jessica's shoulder, whispering to her. She leaned into him, looking delicate and helpless, the kind of woman men wanted to protect. I had seen this exact scene before, and it had felt like a knife in my heart. Now, I felt nothing but a calm satisfaction. In my past life, I had made it too easy for them. This time, I would make them fight for what they wanted. If they wanted to chase their true love, so be it. But I, Chloe, would not be their stepping stone. That evening, Mark came home with a dark look on his face. "Chloe, we need to talk," he said, sitting on the sofa. I was reading and didn't look up. "What is there to talk about?" "Your attitude towards Jessica today was out of line," he said. "She's my classmate and our guest. How could you treat her like that?" I finally looked up at him. "And how did I treat her?" "You know the guest house is in bad shape, but you wouldn't let her stay here. And then you said those things to her in front of everyone. Do you know how humiliating that was?" "What did I say?" "You told her to be mindful of her behavior." Mark's voice got louder. "She's a young woman who just got back from the countryside with no one to rely on, and you question her morals." I put my book down. "Was I wrong? You're a man, she's a woman. Living together under one roof, don't you think that requires some boundaries?" "We're just classmates, nothing more." "Oh, right, a purely platonic relationship," I said flatly, picking up my book again. My indifference made him even angrier. "Chloe, what's wrong with you lately? You're not acting like yourself." "Not acting like myself?" I looked him in the eye. "And what was I like before?" That stopped him. The Chloe he remembered was kind and gentle, always putting his needs first, looking at him with adoration. But he couldn't bring himself to say it. "You used to be very kind," he finally said. "Kind?" I laughed, a cold sound that made him shiver. "So you think I'm not kind anymore? You seem so cold now." "Being cold is better than being stupid," I said, standing up. "Mark, we've been married for 3 years. I think I've earned the right to remind you of something. You're a soldier. You have a wife. You should know what's appropriate and what's not." With that, I walked towards the bedroom. "Chloe," he called after me. "You've changed. You're completely different now." I paused at the door but didn't look back. "People change, Captain Peterson." Inside the bedroom, I looked at myself in the mirror. Mark was right. I had changed. I was no longer the foolish girl who would sacrifice her dignity for a man who didn't deserve it. Was that so wrong? I heard the front door slam. Mark had stormed out. I knew exactly where he was going. To Jessica. That's what he always did. In our past life, whenever we argued, he'd run to her. And she would comfort him, telling him to be more understanding of me. What a saint. But this time, I wasn't going to let them have their private moments. If Mark was so obsessed with his pure friendship, I would make sure everyone on the base saw just how pure it really was. Early the next morning, I went straight to the military district headquarters to see Mrs. Adams, the general's wife. She was the most respected woman on the base, and she was a very traditional woman who hated any kind of moral scandal. "Chloe, what brings you here?" Mrs. Adams asked, surprised to see me. "Auntie Adams, I wanted to talk to you about something," I said, getting right to the point. "What is it?" "Come, sit down and tell me." I sat down and organized my thoughts. "It's about one of Mark's classmates." "You mean that girl, Jessica Miller?" Mrs. Adams had already heard about her. "I heard she's quite pretty." "Yes," I nodded. "She just got back to the city yesterday and Mark wanted her to stay at our house. I thought it was inappropriate and said no." Mrs. Adams' expression darkened. "Letting her stay with you? That's completely improper." "But Mark said I was being petty and unkind," I added, putting on a wounded look. "Auntie Adams, do you think I was wrong?" "Of course not," she said, standing up. "A man and a woman living under the same roof? What kind of message does that send? Mark must have lost his mind. That's what I thought too, I said, lowering my eyes. But Mark said she's just a classmate and I shouldn't overthink it. A classmate? And that makes it okay? Mrs. Adams was getting angrier. And this Jessica, she's unmarried, right? How could she even suggest staying in the home of a married man? I didn't say anything else, just wiped a fake tear from my eye. Don't cry, Mrs. Adams said, patting my hand. Leave this to me. I'll talk to the commander myself. These young officers need some discipline. Conduct issues are not a small matter. Thank you, Auntie Adams, I said sincerely. After leaving her house, I visited several other influential wives on the base. I went to see the wife of the hospital director, the wife of the logistics chief, and even the wife of the political commissar. At each stop, I casually mentioned Jessica's situation and how hurt and confused I was. None of them reacted well. To them, Jessica was a woman with no boundaries, and Mark was a husband who was disrespecting his wife. The gossip spread like wildfire. By the afternoon, everyone was talking about it, and the story got more dramatic with each telling. Some said Jessica had come back to seduce a married man. Others said Mark was planning to leave me. Some even whispered that I was filing for divorce. When Mark heard the rumors, he was shocked. He never imagined things would get so out of hand. All he wanted was for Jessica to stay for a few days. How did it turn into a full-blown scandal? Captain, the commander wants to see you, Private Davis said, rushing over. Mark's heart sank. He knew the higher-ups were now involved. In the commander's office, General Adams was pacing. The moment Mark walked in, the old man yelled, "Mark, have you lost your mind?" "Sir, Save it," General Adams snapped. "I don't care what your relationship with that Jessica is, but you're a soldier and you need to act like one." "Yes, sir," Mark said stiffly. "And your wife, she's a good woman. She earned the title of model military wife for a reason. If you ever betray her, I'll make sure you regret it." "Sir, Jessica and I are really just classmates." "I don't want to hear it," the general said, his gaze sharp. "I'll ask you one thing. Do you want to keep your position as company commander?" "Yes." "Then you'd better watch yourself. I don't want to hear another word about this mess. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir." When Mark left the headquarters, his face was as dark as a thundercloud. He knew this had to be my doing. Chloe had gone to all those officers' wives and deliberately blown the situation up to embarrass him. The old Chloe would never have done this. She had always suffered in silence. But this new Chloe was calculating and strategic. She had changed completely. That evening, when Mark came home, I was in the kitchen. "You're back," I said casually. "Wash your hands. Dinner's almost ready." My tone was calm, as if nothing had happened. "Chloe, you went to see Auntie Adams and the others, didn't you?" Mark asked bluntly. "What?" I replied, pretending to be confused. "Don't play dumb. Who else could have told them all about this?" I put down the spatula. "What are you trying to say, Mark? Are you accusing me of something?" "I just want to know why you had to stir things up like this." "What exactly did I do?" I shot back. "I visited a few elders and talked about some things that were bothering me. What's so wrong with that?" "You knew how they would react," Mark said. "I can't control what people think," I answered coolly. "If there's really nothing going on, why should it matter what others think?" Mark was speechless. He knew I was right. If there was nothing inappropriate between him and Jessica, why should anyone's opinion matter? But the problem was, even he wasn't sure what he felt for her. "Now even the commander knows about this. Are you happy now?" he snapped. "Why would that make me happy?" I looked at him, genuinely confused. "Is it a bad thing for your superior to be interested in your life?" "You know that's not what I mean." "Then what do you mean?" I pressed. "Are you saying I shouldn't defend my marriage? That I should just sit back and let people talk behind my back?" Mark couldn't argue. He wasn't used to this confident, logical version of me. The old Chloe never questioned him. This new Chloe cut through his excuses like a knife. "I'll get your dinner," I said, turning back to the kitchen. "Oh, and I forgot to tell you. Jessica's been assigned to a position at the County Cultural Bureau. She's reporting there tomorrow." Mark froze. "Since when?" "This afternoon," I replied, bringing the dishes to the table. "I heard the order came straight from headquarters." It hit him instantly. This was also my doing. I had not only blown the situation up, but I had also used the momentum to get her reassigned and removed permanently. This woman, he thought, has become terrifying. Are you happy now? He growled. I don't know what you're talking about, I said evenly, starting to eat. Work assignments are handled by the organization. What do they have to do with me? Mark stared at my calm face and, for the first time, felt a strange kind of fear. He realized he had never truly understood the woman he married. The next day, when Jessica left, Mark went to see her off. I watched from the upstairs window. Jessica was crying, and Mark looked conflicted. They talked for a long time. Finally, Jessica stood on her toes and kissed him lightly on the cheek. Plenty of people saw it, and the gossip started all over again. I just watched with a cold smile. In my past life, that scene would have torn me apart. Now, I just felt disgusted by their cheap performance. When Mark came home, his face was stormy. Did you enjoy the show? He asked, looking up at the window where I stood. I didn't flinch. I looked right back at him. Not bad, quite the spectacle. He stormed upstairs and burst into the bedroom. Chloe, why are you doing this? Doing what? Don't play dumb. You're the one who got Jessica transferred, aren't you? I looked up from my book. Mark, I think you've misunderstood something. I'm just a military wife. I don't have the authority to reassign personnel. But you can influence the wives of the officers, he shot back. I simply told the truth, I said calmly. If that's what you call scheming, then sure, I schemed. Mark hadn't expected me to admit it so directly. It left him speechless. Why are you doing this to Jessica? He finally asked. She didn't do anything wrong. She didn't do anything wrong? I walked up to him, my eyes locked on his. An unmarried woman asks to live in a married couple's home, and that's not wrong? She just didn't have anywhere else to go. There are dozens of empty rooms on this base. Why did it have to be our home? Mark couldn't come up with a single good reason. And what about that little scene downstairs just now? I continued, getting closer. A woman kisses a married man on the cheek in front of everyone, and that's okay too? It was just a goodbye kiss, he said. A goodbye kiss? I laughed coldly. Do you think I'm a fool, Mark? He was stunned by the look in my eyes. There was no softness or admiration left, only indifference and contempt. It was like I had become a stranger. I'll admit, he said after a moment, gritting his teeth, I do have feelings for Jessica, but that's in the past. I'm your husband now. Oh, I said flatly, then turned and walked out of the room. Where are you going? He called after me. Divorce, I said without turning back. What? Mark paled, grabbing my arm. Chloe, you can't mean that. Why not? I shook off his hand. You just admitted you have feelings for another woman. What am I supposed to do? Wait around for you to cheat on me? I haven't done anything with her, he said quickly. I haven't betrayed you. Maybe not yet, I replied icily. But if that day comes, what then, Mark? If your heart already belongs to someone else, there's no reason for this marriage to continue. No, I don't agree to a divorce, he said desperately. We're married, Chloe. You can't just walk away over a suspicion. Then make a vow, I said, stopping and turning to face him. Swear to me that from this day forward, you will never see Jessica again, never contact her again. Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. Could he really cut off all contact with Jessica? His silence was the only answer I needed. You can't, can you? I said softly. Then divorce is the best option. Chloe, please listen to me. I don't want to listen. I cut him off sharply. Mark, I already gave you a chance. You chose Jessica. I didn't choose her. Then swear it, I shot back, my voice turning cold. Swear that you'll never see her again, never speak to her again. Again, Mark was silent. He couldn't do it. Even though Jessica was gone, he knew he'd go looking for her. He couldn't control his feelings for her. If you can't even do that, I said, then don't bother saying any more empty words. I turned and started down the stairs. I'm going to the political office to file for divorce. No, Mark chased after me, blocking my way. Chloe, I won't let you do this. That's your problem, I said calmly, looking him in the eye. But my decision is clear. I'm getting a divorce. Mark looked at me, baffled. Why? Why does it have to come to this? We can move past it. I promise I won't bring up Jessica again. Because I don't love you anymore, I said, cutting straight to the heart of the matter. The words hit him like a physical blow. What did you say? He asked, as if he hadn't heard me. I said, I don't love you anymore, I repeated, my voice steady. Chloe, that's impossible, he said, shaken. You've loved me for years. You can't just stop loving me. Why not? I asked. Love fades, just like it appears. I don't believe you, he said, grabbing my shoulders. You're just angry. You don't mean that. Once you calm down, you'll think differently. I looked at the face so close to mine and felt nothing. In my past life, I used to dream of him saying he couldn't lose me. Now that he finally was, I found I no longer cared. Let go, Mark, I said softly. There's no saving what we had. No, I won't let go, he said, his eyes red. You're my wife. I won't let you leave me. Then you can keep trying, I said, pulling away from him. But I'm telling you right now, no matter how much you resist, I'll find a way to make this divorce happen. With that, I turned and walked out the door. Behind me, I heard Mark's furious shout, Chloe, get back here! I didn't turn around, not in this life. In the political commissar's office, Commissar Evans was silent for a long time after I finished my story. Chloe, divorce isn't something to take lightly. Are you two just going through a rough patch? You should talk things through. Commissar, I've made up my mind, I said firmly. I have to leave this marriage. But why? I know Mark well. He's a good man. You've been married 3 years and always seemed happy. Why the sudden change? I had my answer ready. Commissar, I've realized we're incompatible, and he has feelings for another woman. I can't live with that. Commissar Evans frowned. You're talking about that girl, Jessica Miller? Yes, I nodded. Mark admitted to having feelings for her. His expression immediately turned serious. As a political commissar in the Army, he had zero tolerance for misconduct, especially when it came to personal integrity. He said that directly. Absolutely, I said, my eyes welling with unshed tears. I'm a woman, Commissar. I can't share my husband with anyone else. Of course you can't, he said, slamming his hand on the desk. Mark has lost his mind. That's why I want a divorce, I continued. I don't want to destroy his happiness, but I won't sacrifice my own. Commissar Evans looked at me with a mix of emotions. I had always been known as the model military wife, diligent and beautiful, never complaining. Now, here I was, asking for a divorce because my husband's heart had strayed. He couldn't help but sympathize. Chloe, go home for now, he finally said. I need to look into this. Thank you, Commissar. After leaving his office, I went to headquarters to speak with Commander Thompson. Chloe, what brings you here? He asked, surprised. Commander, I'm here to request to be discharged from my military spouse status, I said directly. Discharged? Why? I want a divorce. Once it's finalized, I won't be a military wife anymore, so there's no reason for me to stay in the compound. Commander Thompson was stunned. Divorce? You and Mark are getting a divorce? Yes, I nodded. His heart is with someone else. I don't want to force things. Nonsense, he burst out. That bastard Mark, I warned him. Please don't blame him, I said, putting on a calm and generous front. Feelings can't be forced. Since he loves someone else, I'd rather step aside than make everyone suffer. No, I can't allow a good woman like you to be wronged, Commander Thompson said furiously. Chloe, don't worry. I'll make this right for you. Thank you, Commander, I replied sincerely. But truly, I don't want to push this anymore. I just want to leave quietly and start a new life. He looked at my determined expression and felt both admiration and sorrow. What a good woman. And Mark didn't know how to treasure her. He must have been blind. News of the divorce spread quickly. The entire compound was buzzing. Everyone sympathized with me and was outraged at Mark's heartlessness. Mark was summoned to headquarters again. This time, Commander Thompson was genuinely furious. Mark Peterson, you've truly disappointed me, he roared. You had such a good wife, and you threw her away. Has your brain been kicked by a mule? Commander, Save it, he snapped. The entire compound knows you've fallen for another woman. How am I supposed to explain this to the rest of the officers? Mark stood with his head down, unable to say a word. I'll ask you one last time. Do you want to keep this family or not? Yes, Mark answered without hesitation. Then get your act together, the commander shouted. Forget about Jessica Miller completely. Cut all ties and go apologize to Chloe. Crawl if you have to. You don't deserve her, but she's still your wife. Don't screw this up again. When Mark left headquarters, his face was pale. He finally understood that he had truly enraged everyone. If Chloe really filed for divorce, his future in the military would be over. But could he really forget about Jessica? That beautiful, gentle woman, his perfect first love? Could he truly just let her go? When he returned home, I was packing. What are you doing? He asked. Packing, I said without looking up. I'm moving out tomorrow. No. Mark rushed forward and grabbed my hand. Chloe, you can't go. Why not? I pulled my hand away. There's nothing left between us, Mark. There is. There has to be, he said, panicking. Chloe, I was wrong. I truly realize it now. I swear I won't bring up Jessica again. It's too late, I said, continuing to pack. I don't love you anymore. That's not true, he said, refusing to believe it. You've loved me for so many years. You can't just stop. I paused and turned to face him. Mark, do you even know how I spent the last 3 years? He was stunned. I got up every morning at 5 to make your breakfast. I waited for you late into the night. I washed your clothes by hand and mended your socks. I poured every second of my time and energy into you, and do you know why? Mark couldn't answer. So that maybe, just maybe, you'd look at me. So that you'd be a little kinder to me. But you, I continued, my voice steady, you took everything I gave and treated it like it was nothing. You took my love as if it were worthless. And now, the moment your first love reappears, your heart is already wandering. Mark tried to interrupt. I'm tired, Mark, I cut him off. For 3 years, I gave you all the love I had. Now there's nothing left inside me. I'm empty. There's no room in my heart for anyone anymore. Those words pierced him like a blade. For the first time, Mark realized what he was losing wasn't just a wife. It was a woman who had once truly and completely loved him. Chloe, I know I was wrong before, but I can change, he said desperately. Give me a chance. Let me love you again. There's no need. I lifted my suitcase. Mark, whatever we had ends here. No. Mark blocked the doorway. I won't let you leave. Then keep blocking the door, I said, putting down my luggage and sitting on the couch. I've already filed for divorce. Whether it's today or later, I'll leave. I won't agree to it. Then wait for the court to enforce it, I said calmly. Mark completely panicked. He never imagined I would be so resolute. I used to cry and beg and act sweet, always giving him a way out. But now, I was like a different person, frighteningly calm and firm. Chloe, tell me, he pleaded. What can I do for you to forgive me? I looked at him, my eyes cold and unwavering. Mark, there are some mistakes you just can't fix. Some wounds don't heal. Your feelings for Jessica, that was one of those mistakes. I can forget her, he said quickly. I can forget everything. Forget her? I let out a soft, bitter laugh. Can you really? I stared at him. When you looked at her, your eyes lit up. That light. I've never once seen it when you looked at me. Mark was speechless. Do you know what I hate most? I asked quietly. It's not that you loved someone else. It's that in all the years we were together, you never once looked at me like that. My voice was soft, but every word hit him like a hammer. 3 years of marriage, and the way you looked at me was always the same. Distant, polite, out of obligation. But when you looked at her, you finally seemed alive. That broke him completely because he knew I was telling the truth. The next day, I really moved out. I rented a small place near the military compound and began living alone. Mark came to find me almost every day. Sometimes he begged, sometimes he got angry, and sometimes he tried to threaten me, but none of it moved me. Chloe, are you really going to be this heartless? He asked one day, standing outside my door. I'm not being heartless, I said from inside. I'm protecting myself. 3 years of marriage, doesn't that mean anything to you? It does, I said after a pause. But it's in the past. The only thing I feel for you now is disappointment. Mark leaned against the door, tears in his eyes. He had never imagined losing me could hurt this much. He used to think of me as something like air, always there, always taken for granted. He thought even if he lost me, it wouldn't matter. Now he knew without air, a person suffocates. Chloe, he choked out, I really know I was wrong. Please, just give me one more chance. There was silence behind the door. Then, after a long pause, my voice came through. Mark, there are some mistakes that should never be made. Some wounds should never be inflicted. Do you understand that? But Mark didn't understand. He didn't understand how I could become so distant, how I could stop loving him just like that. But there was one thing he did understand clearly. He couldn't lose me. Losing me meant his entire world would fall apart. 2 weeks later, the divorce was officially approved. Both the commissar and the commander were furious, but they sympathized with me. A model military wife abandoned by her husband. This caused an uproar across the entire military compound. Everyone condemned Mark's heartlessness and praised my strength. Chloe was such a good comrade, Mark must have been blind. I heard that Jessica Miller is very pretty. Men just love chasing something new. Poor Chloe, so young and already living on her own. These conversations eventually reached Mark's ears, and every word cut into him like a knife. He thought about going to Jessica to ask her if this was really the future she wanted, but he never did. Because suddenly he understood something. Even if he did go to her, even if they really ended up together, he wouldn't be happy. Because what he had lost was a woman who had truly loved him. And a woman like that, you only meet once in a lifetime. The day the divorce was finalized, I stood outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, staring at the certificate in my hands. In my past life, I could have never imagined this moment. Back then, I treated Mark like he was my world. I thought I couldn't survive without him. But now, I had discovered that once I left him, the sky above me was even brighter. Chloe? Mark's voice came from behind me. I turned and saw him walking toward me. What is it? I asked calmly. I want to ask you something, he said, his eyes filled with pain. Do you really not regret it? Regret what? Regret divorcing me? Regret leaving me? I looked at him for a moment, then suddenly smiled. Mark, the only thing I regret is not leaving you sooner. Those words shattered him. That's not possible, he murmured. You can't not love me. You're too full of yourself, Mark, I said lightly. No one in this world is truly indispensable. I used to think I couldn't live without you, but that was only because I'd never tried. Now I know I'm doing just fine without you. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving Mark standing alone on the steps. The sun was setting, his shadow stretched long and thin behind him, just like the loneliness that now filled his life. After the divorce, I didn't fall apart like everyone expected. On the contrary, I became even more driven. I found a job as an elementary school teacher. In my free time, I started teaching myself English and began preparing for the reinstated National College Entrance Exam. When the government announced in 1977 that the exam would resume, the whole country was buzzing with excitement, and I was no exception. In my past life, I gave up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for Mark, but in this life, I was going to take charge of my own future. Chloe, are you really planning to take the college entrance exam? Asked my young neighbor, Lily. Of course, I nodded. I want to go to college. But you're already 22 and you're divorced, Lily hesitated. So what? I asked calmly. Being divorced means I can't go to college? No, that's not what I meant. Even if you pass, it'll be hard to find someone to marry later. Who said I'm looking to get married? I smiled. I'm perfectly fine on my own. Lily was stunned. In this era, it was rare for a woman to remain unmarried, especially someone like me. People just assumed I would eventually remarry. But I had no intention of doing so. Preparing for the exam was grueling. I worked during the day and studied at night, often until the early hours of the morning. And yet, I felt fulfilled and happy. That feeling of striving toward a goal, of fighting for something that belonged to me, was something I had never experienced in my past life. Back then, all my energy had been devoted to taking care of Mark. I had never fought for my own dreams. Only now did I realize how beautiful it was to live for myself. When I went to register for the exam, something unexpected happened. Comrade, are you sure you want to apply to Peking University? The registration clerk asked, double checking. Yes, I nodded firmly. But your qualifications? The staff member looked troubled. Peking is the top university in the country. Competition is incredibly fierce. I know, I said, but I believe in myself. In my previous life, I never took the college entrance exam, so I never knew my true potential. But in this life, I discovered that I actually had a strong academic ability. Maybe it was because I no longer had emotional burdens weighing me down. My mind was clearer, and my memory was sharper. When word spread through the military compound, it sparked a fresh wave of gossip. Chloe's applying to Peking University? Seriously? That's the best school in the country. She's just a grade school teacher. Can she really make it? Even if she doesn't get in, you've got to admire her courage. When Mark heard the news, he was sitting in his office staring blankly into space. For the past 6 months, he had been a mess, making frequent mistakes at work. He had tried to reconnect with Jessica, hoping to recapture that old feeling, but when he finally saw her again, the excitement he had imagined was gone. Instead, he felt a hollow emptiness. That was when he finally understood that what he had felt for Jessica wasn't love. It was nostalgia, but what he had lost in me was something entirely different. She had truly loved him. Captain, what are you thinking about? Asked his aide, Private Davis. Nothing. Mark shook himself from his thoughts. What did you just say? I said Chloe's taking the college entrance exam, Davis repeated. She's applying to Peking University. Mark froze. The Chloe he had known was a gentle, traditional housewife. She had never shown any interest in academics. And now she was aiming for the best university in the country. That's right, Davis continued. I heard she studies late into the night. Everyone says she's really determined. Mark said nothing. A heavy silence fell over him. Only now did he begin to realize that he had never truly understood the woman he married. She didn't lack ambition. She just sacrificed it all for him. And now, without him weighing her down, she was finally living as her true self. That realization filled him with a deep, aching guilt. He hadn't just ruined a marriage, he had destroyed a woman's youth and her dreams. As the exam date drew closer, I entered the final phase of my study sprint. My daily routine was strict. I woke up at 5 a.m. for morning reading, worked during the day, then studied late into the night. Everyone around me admired my perseverance. Chloe really is something else, my landlady said. She works, studies, and still manages everything on her own. Yeah, Mark was a fool. How could he let a woman like that go? The neighbor said. These whispers eventually reached Mark, and each word made his guilt deepen. He started hanging around my neighborhood, just hoping to catch a glimpse of me. But he never had the courage to approach. He didn't know what he could say. Sorry felt far too shallow. So all he could do was watch me from afar, watch me leaving early and coming home late, watch me rushing down the street under the glow of the street lamps. Then one night, he finally couldn't hold back. Chloe, he called out to me at the gate of my neighborhood. I stopped and turned to look at him. What are you doing here? I wanted to see you. His voice trembled. Is there something you need? I asked calmly. No, nothing in particular. I just wanted to see how you were doing. I looked at him. There wasn't a single ripple in my heart. Well, you've seen me. I'm fine. If there's nothing else, I'll be on my way. Wait, Mark called out quickly. Chloe, are you really applying to Peking University? Yes. Why choose somewhere so far away? His voice carried pain. Can't you stay here and go to a local college? I looked at him, and in that moment, I understood. Mark, do you think I would change my plans because of you? That's not what I meant. It is, I interrupted. You think I chose Peking to run away from you, don't you? His face flushed. He didn't deny it. Well, let me tell you, I said, my voice cool and steady. You're wrong. I chose Peking University because it's the best university in the country. You never even entered into my consideration. That sentence hit him like a knife to the chest. Chloe, do you really not care about me at all anymore? He asked, almost pleading. I looked at him, quiet for a long time before finally answering. Mark, do you know what it means for a heart to go completely cold? He shook his head. It means when someone truly gives up, nothing you do can make them feel anything. No pain, no joy. That's how I feel about you. I don't hate you. I don't love you. You're just a stranger to me now. No, that can't be, he whispered. You can't possibly feel nothing at all for me. Why not? I asked. Mark, you think too highly of yourself. Do you really believe the whole world should revolve around you? I never thought that. Yes, you did. I cut him off again. Otherwise, you wouldn't assume my life choices should be based on how you feel. He was speechless. This is the last time I'm going to say this, Mark, I said clearly. There is nothing between us anymore. My life, my choices, they have nothing to do with you. So please, stop showing up and disturbing me. And with that, I turned and walked into the complex, leaving him standing at the gate. The night wind was cold, but colder than the wind was the emptiness in his heart. On the day of the college entrance exam, the entire city was buzzing. Countless young people walked into the testing centers determined to change their fate. I was one of them. I wore a simple blue suit, my hair tied back neatly, and a confident smile on my face. Most of the other test takers were teenagers. At 22, I stood out, but I didn't care about the stares. I only cared about my goal, to get into Peking University. The first subject was Chinese. The questions didn't seem too difficult. I had always loved reading, so my foundation in literature was solid. The second subject was math, the one I worried about most. I had devoted most of my study time to it, and to my surprise, I could solve most of the problems. All my hard work had paid off. Next came English, political science, and history. I did well on each one, feeling sharper and more focused than I ever had before. Outside the exam building, crowds of parents waited anxiously. When I stepped out, I spotted a familiar figure in the crowd. Mark was there, his eyes locked on me with a hopeful look. Our eyes met. He started to take a step forward, but I turned away before he could. I didn't have time for him. The only thing on my mind was the result. A few months later, the results were released. I had been accepted into the Chinese department at Peking University with outstanding scores. The news caused a sensation throughout the county. A divorced woman getting into the most prestigious university in the country was nothing short of a miracle. Amazing! Who says women are inferior to men? Chloe is the perfect counterexample. She's what you call a real strong woman. Mark must be regretting everything now. Praise and congratulations poured in from every direction. I became a local celebrity, an inspiration to countless women. When Mark heard the news, he was stunned. He had never imagined I would actually get into Peking University. In his mind, I had always just been a simple housewife. Only now did he realize how wrong he had been. I hadn't lacked talent. I had simply buried it for him. Now that I was free, I could finally shine. That realization shook him deeply and filled him with guilt. He hadn't just lost a loyal wife. He had lost a woman of remarkable ability, and once a woman like that walks out of your life, she's gone forever. The day I received my acceptance letter, I invited a few friends over to celebrate. Mrs. Lee, my kind landlady, Mia, my young neighbor, and Olivia, a colleague from work. Chloe, you're the pride of all of us women, Mia said excitedly. Exactly. Who cares if you're divorced? You still made a name for yourself, Olivia added. Mrs. Lee took my hand, her eyes moist. Child, you've had a tough year, but now the worst is behind you. Looking at the people around me, people who genuinely cared for me, my heart swelled with warmth. This was what real friendship and true support looked like. Thank you, everyone, I said, raising my glass. Here's to new beginnings. To new beginnings, they all echoed. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Mia went to open it and came back with an odd look on her face. Chloe, Mark's here. The room fell silent. Let him in, I said calmly. Mark stepped inside, his eyes sweeping over the lively scene before settling on me. A bitter smile touched his lips. Congratulations, he said. Getting into peaking, that's really something. Thank you, I replied flatly. I I was wondering if I could speak with you alone for a moment, he pleaded. I glanced at my friends, then nodded. All right. We stepped out onto the balcony. The sun was setting, casting long shadows. Chloe, I wanted to say I'm sorry, Mark said quietly. You've already said it, I replied. I know, but I wanted to say it again. He looked at me intently. Now I finally understand just how incredible a woman I lost. Too late, I said flatly. Yeah, too late. He gave a bitter smile. Chloe, you're going to have a bright future. I know it. I hope so. He hesitated, then added, About Jessica, what I mean is, I didn't go to see her. We've been apart for a while, and in that time, I've come to realize a lot. What I felt for her? Maybe it was just an illusion. I didn't respond. I felt nothing. What I really want to say is now I know what true love is, Mark continued. Chloe, could we ever? I cut him off. Mark, whatever it is you're about to ask, my answer is no. His face went pale. Why? He asked. If I didn't go to Jessica, if I've realized my mistake. It doesn't matter, I said, turning to face him. Don't you understand, Mark? The problem was never whether you saw Jessica or not. The problem is that she had a place in your heart. But now doesn't change anything. My voice was firm. Some damage can't be undone. Some mistakes can't be forgiven. What you felt for Jessica was that kind of mistake. Mark closed his eyes in pain. Chloe, I really do understand now. Understanding isn't enough, I said quietly. Understanding doesn't mean we can start over. Is there really no chance for us? He asked, searching my face. I met his gaze, steady and unflinching. No, Mark, there's nothing left between us. With that, I turned and walked back inside, leaving him alone on the balcony. The night had fallen, and he stood there motionless, as if trying to hold on to something already gone. And I knew he finally understood. He had truly lost me for good. When the day came for me to leave for Beijing, I packed my simple luggage and boarded the train. People from all over the county came to see me off. I had become a source of pride, an example of independent womanhood. Chloe, write to us when you get to Beijing, someone shouted. Study hard. We're all waiting for your good news, another added. Their sincere blessings filled my heart with warmth. I waved goodbye to them all and stepped onto the train. As it slowly pulled away from the platform, I sat by the window, watching my hometown fade into the distance. I thought of everything I had been through, of the version of myself who once gave up everything for Mark. That woman was gone. Now I was a new Chloe, a woman living for herself, heading toward a new life. Back on the platform, Mark stood silently at the rear of the crowd. He watched the train disappear down the tracks, and deep down, he knew this was goodbye forever. From now on, Chloe and Mark truly belonged to different worlds.